Hello, and welcome back to The Myth Within. I'm Dr. Tom, and I'm really grateful to have you join me here today. Spring is here. The flowers are blossoming on the roads traveled, and maybe there's new things to come, especially since we've been in sort of a winter of sorts. As I was taking my dog for his morning walk today, I began to notice that the sun was rising just a little bit earlier or later as our daylight savings time has pushed spring forward. But one thing that I did hear was the birds chirping as the sun was rising. And I noticed on the way to work today that the flowers were blooming down the street. You could see the cherry blossoms and you could see the almond blossoms flourishing in the orchards. And it began to make me think of what a special time spring really is. When we look at the myths of old, one myth in particular that draws my attention to the power of spring is the myth of Persephone. And Persephone was a daughter of Zeus and Demeter. And in a act of trickery, Hades stole Persephone and brought her to the underworld to be his wife. And in another act of trickery, he gave her some pomegranate seeds to partake in, which really cursed her to the underworld. But seeing this as an act of trickery, Zeus sent his messenger, Hermes, to Hades and asked for Persephone back because there was a large famine in Demeter's grief of losing her daughter. She forgot to allow the crops to spring, and a large famine took place, hurting humanity. And so a deal was struck in which we get 6 months of Persephone descending into the underworld and 6 months of her reascending. And when Demeter sees her daughter again, she allows the flowers to bloom. She allows the crops to bloom, which allows us to partake in the feast. This really reminds us of the cyclical nature of life. For every winter, as the nights grow longer, there is also a spring that's at its heel. And so, as the world grows cold and aspects of the leaves fall and die for the year's end, new new life is just around the corner. And today, as I was walking the dog, I began to realize that as I was hearing a lot more birds chirping than I would normally hear in the winter's night. And there seemed to be new life moving all around on the drive into work as I saw the cherry blossoms and I saw the almond blossoms moving. And this is a reminder of the true nature that spring offers us. It's rejuvenation, it's rebirth. And the foundation of rebirth is the idea of rebirth is really a foundation of almost all world religions, including in Christianity. We have the idea of rebirth through Christ. In Buddhism, there's an idea of rebirth through life until one reaches the apex called nirvana. And when we begin to take a look at the cyclical nature of life, this has been a very difficult winter. With COVID 19, we have been exposed to really an arduous journey where we had to descend, many of us, into our own form of a prison called quarantine. And as we began to learn how to deal with a new disease and create the means by which we could eventually overcome it, this represents a descent into the underworld, a descent into the unknown. We were looking at Hades, or the god of death, face to face with this disease. And now we have the capacity to see some hope and to see some light at the end of this tunnel. I'm bringing this up because just recently I had the second vaccination. And that second vaccination, it hit me pretty hard, but it was one of the it was definitely an area where I feel now a sense of rejuvenation, a sense of hope, and a sense of longing to have things back into the way that they were. However, we'll never return to the way things were before. And that's the beauty behind this ideal of spring, that with every new beginning, there's a sense of transformation that occurs. There's a sense of growth that happens. And while we can never recreate exactly what was, just like we can never step in the same river twice, there is this ability to look at the natural cycles of life, this winter and spring, and begin to see a sense of hope that is present, especially as it relates to the growth that we can incur from having survived such a phenomenon as this pandemic that we underwent over the past year or so. And so, as spring begins, is there hope out there? Do you see any hope? Do you see a sense of new beginnings that are present? Just as the flowers blossom, so too does our psychological, emotional, and spiritual growth. It blossoms as we descend into that unknown and begin to work out the things that are there. And so, as I took a look today at the beautiful blossoms and the birds chirping, it reminded me that Persephone is back from the underworld and spring is here. What elements have I learned from this? Well, I would say that return into the underworld can be tough. It can be arduous. But it's in those tough moments that we begin to really see the true light of who we are and who we can become. So until next time, my friends, I wish you namaste. And I wish you blessings as you advance confidently in the direction of your dreams. Thank you for joining. Bye.